Chin chin.
Chiru. Chin chimney. Thank you very much for joining us for another episode of One More Round, and welcome back to another episode of Film Club. I'm one of your hosts, Andy Harrison, and as always, to my right is the idiot, Andy Donaldson.
Hello.
Every single week in Film Club, we invite you along at home to watch a film with us. We dive into the history of cinema and explore the question, does this film still hold up? This week, what have we been watching?
Withnail And I.
Withnail And I.
Withnail And I.
It's quite difficult to drink out of.
Especially like that, man. Trying to jump around it was anyway. Withnail And I is about a couple of people. It's a couple of people who are together, living together, and love alcohol, drugs, and just partying, and don't like cleaning. And then they decide, it's cold in the house, so they decide they're going to go on holiday to a cottage just to get away for a bit. So they ask Withnail's uncle, he's a bit weird himself. He says, yeah, go over, here's the key to the cottage. They go to the cottage, meet some weird Lake District people, and then the uncle comes over and, yeah, he tries to hit on I.
He does. What do you think of it?
At first I was a bit apprehensive, but then it came into it, there's some parts I was like, I like this. And then it like twisted and turned towards the end, and I was thinking, where's this going? And I expected maybe it was going to go into a murder, sort of like Midsummer Murders kind of thing. Then there was parts where I expected it to go to it was a whole trip, so it was like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then it came to the end, and it ended on a really, really kind of like good sour note, like not sour note, good unhappy happy ending, like parting of ways. And I was thinking, shit, that was a good way to finish this, because it led you astray in so many ways.
It's a weird thing, because like we talked about this, I can't remember what film was very recently about the plot meandering, and this is another film where it does kind of meander like the characters do.
Yes, it does. It's Barry Lyndon, it was meanders.
It was Barry Lyndon, yeah, although now looking back, Barry Lyndon has much more precision than this does.
It does, yeah.
So this is really weird, because you've got, I think, a film which is really, really based in realism for a lot of the way the plot and the world works, but you've got characters who seem to think that they are part of absurdism.
Well,
and like, you've got these two kind of ridiculous characters, obviously Withnail more than I. But they're the ones who are assuming situations are larger than what they are.
Yeah, you can tell that from the very start when he has like the drug scenes, and I is getting really paranoid about it all, which happens to them both, but it first comes across with I. And they kind of both take that on board, that paranoia that makes them see, and of course you get into the characters, so it makes you see more of the scenario. Like I said, I thought it was going to go into a murder, I thought it was going to be like Fear and Loathing.
Yeah. And
it's just them two exaggerating the actual realism of the situation itself.
Yeah.
And it's brilliantly done.
And that's obviously it comes from like the drug and alcohol fuel, but I do really appreciate that it's kind of more alcohol based than drug based.
I like that as well.
That it's leaning towards the alcohol, like the obsession with alcohol, and like they do drugs a little bit.
Yeah.
But they're like alcohol is their drug.
Yeah. It's a good look into not necessarily the bad sides of alcoholism, because there are some bad sides of it, but you look more into what their perspective from their perspective.
Yeah.
No, it was good. What is your favourite thing about it?
My favourite thing about it is it's one of two things. It's either, what's he called, Danny? The guy who's a bit spaced out, and he talks about it being the end of the greatest era.
And do you know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of, what's his name? Of the IT crowd. I was looking.
Yes, yeah.
Like that. What's he called? He's got a really funny name.
I don't remember.
I will search it.
You search it.
Go on, sorry, so Danny.
It's either Danny, because Danny just comes out with some of the best lines in the film.
He fucking does.
But I think my favourite line in the film actually goes to his uncle, who's called
Monty.
Uncle Monty. When Monty says something like, I can't touch raw meat until it's cooked. As a boy, I used to stand in butchers' shops and weep. Which is just, it's brilliant.
Well,
but the film is full of amazing lines like that.
Yes, yeah, it is. It's seriously well written. I was looking at it like when I was thinking, what the hell is Withnail And I? It was Rick that told us last week. It was like, what the fuck is that? Never heard that before. And I was looking at it. It was by the guy that is it the director, the writer. It's like almost like a biography of his earlier life.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit more exaggerated, and I just love the way it goes about. Like his Withnail's scene at the end, how he's got this. It reminds me a lot of. Do you know what it reminds me of? The Project of Maxi. Great use of English.
Yeah.
Stranger by the Shore.
I see what you mean. I mean, this film, obviously, it's discussed quite a lot when you talk about the top, 10, top 100 best British films of all time.
Is it really?
And then Withnail and I always comes up in some capacity.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a certified good, but you can actually see its influence if you look at some of the stuff that's come out in the past couple of decades now since this film came out. You can see its ripple effects. I got strong vibes of what's that sitcom called, The Young Ones, from this, and Black Books as well.
Black Books, very, very kind of black humour, obviously, dark humour and stuff. It's got that lovely kind of, it's Dylan Moran.
Dylan Moran, yeah. You can kind of see whether they've taken influence from this type of film.
Richmond, by the way. Noel Fielding, Richmond.
Yes, yeah.
Richmond.
Yeah.
Well, go on, sorry, my apologies.
You can kind of see those pieces of work have taken inspiration from this film in terms of the tone and that era and those type of characters, because you don't get a lot of this represented, or at least you didn't Withnail and I. You didn't get a lot of this represented in film, which is kind of it's a love for the 60s in a way, but also an understanding that it wasn't the most healthy time.
No.
That's probably an understatement.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like they put everything. It's a great example is when they go and buy Wellingtons, and they put alcohol before Wellingtons.
Yeah.
Or where the rent, they haven't been paying rent, so it's obvious that they've been putting all the party stuff before. Even the food, they have no food. The heating, it's evident that the road was cold. They have no heating. I know when they went to a cottage, but they literally the nice chair. They put it apart for firewood.
Yeah,
and it's in plastic bag.
That's fucking brilliant when he just smashes the wooden chair up and he's like, I need heat. But the film's all about endings in a lot of respect as well. You have, like I said, the end of the 60s coming up. Yeah. Withnail, I think it is, mentions that he's turning 30 soon.
Yes, it does.
Then you have them parting ways at the end. It's all about these people who have just come out of their 20s, who come out of that period of feeling like invincible, that period of believing like the world is their oyster that can change things, realizing they kind of can't, realizing that actually their dreams maybe didn't play out as they should have.
Yeah. And
that's kind of their fault, but they don't want to admit that at the same time.
Yeah. It's like that period of, the idea is, when you how can I go about this? That moment is that you push it away, you split up the relationship, and you have that moment of grief after. That's it.
Yes,
that's something for grief, or you lose a job or something. You have that moment where I'll just have I'll get over it. I'll give myself a week, 2 weeks in this case. It's a month, 1 year. In their case, 5 years. So it goes on and on. They've almost lived in that moment where it's a sense of denial.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you can see that at the end when he gets up, he's got a new image. He's shaved his head, hasn't he? He's cut his hair. He says, "No, I don't want anything like that. I've got to go. No, I don't want any more wine." That's his acceptance of moving on.
Yeah.
I think that's part of why Withnail at the end, he's sad to see his friend go. Not just that, but he almost it's like a realization for himself. Shit, he's got himself back together.
Yeah.
He's the one that was like, okay, I was okay, I'm bad because I's bad as well.
Exactly, they were doing it. They were kind of getting away with it because each one of them were doing it. So it's like, I can do it because I've still got a friend who's doing it.
I know Monty's kind of eccentric in his own right, but Monty actually points it out, I see what you've done to him. It's not just what I's done to Withnail, but it's what Withnail's done to I.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like what's it called, yin and yang sort of thing.
Yeah, they're kind of feeding each other. Hugely. But at the same time, everything they're doing is purely self-destructive. They've got this mindset of it's them against the world. And they've got this mindset that they're rebelling against the world, but they're kind of not. The worst thing they do is insult somebody and make a bit of a fuss in a tea room. And they don't really do anything, but they feel, I get the impression, they feel like they're taking on the world.
Yes, yeah. Which is, it's funny to go into it, because one of my favourite things about the film was just how much you love them two as characters. You are so drawn into it. You're drawn into their chemistry, the performance, their hilarity.
Richard E. Grant in this is just
hugely
amazing.
Hugely good, he is. I'd like to come on to a bit more of that in a second. But you invest so much into these characters, into this strange, realistic scenario, and for it to end, you feel that ending. You come across and it's like, you know, I don't want this like kind of, although it's bad, I don't want this like kind of daft little ruckus to end. You know, this is what you've grown to love or watching the film. It's great. It's really good. And then and going on from that, what I'd like to go into, it's something I've never seen much of Richard E. Grant, but again referring back to Mike the man. We'll have to put his head up or something. He'd hate it.
I don't know what Mike looks like yet.
Yeah, he looks like a person. No, what I'm trying to say is he pointed out that this is apparently the film that Richard E. Grant started, his first one. But when Mike was saying, he was like, has he moved on from that character? He seems to play himself in most other films.
I mean, I think this is the film that whenever you bring up Richard E. Grant, people always go Withnail And I.
Yeah.
But I don't think that detracts from anything else he's done. This is just more of an assertion about how good the performance in this is.
I hope so.
Because
I hope so.
In a lot of ways, he juxtaposes everyone else in the film. He's not like anybody else in the film. Even I, who's closest to in terms of character,
I'd say his uncle Monty,
or his uncle, somewhere between those. He's still, like I said before, everyone else. There's a layer of realism in this film, and he's the most absurd thing in the film. Yeah. Maybe Danny with his massive joint at the end.
I don't know. I thought there was more to Danny than there is to Withnail. Withnail like, almost like doesn't accept reality. Whereas if you think about the end of the film, actually, I hugely disagree with that. Danny at the end of the film, he's the one that sorts the rats out. He's the one that someone comes to your door. I was going to cash your checks in. He's the one that's actually most prepared out of them all.
That's a very good point, actually. I love that moment where you can kind of you can almost see the realization of that setting in with I. He's kind of freaking out because he's having that like bad trip.
Yeah.
But when he's getting his checks off him, he's almost a realization of like, shit, we thought you were the guy who didn't have his shit together. We thought we were the ones that were okay.
Yeah.
Because like you were worse than we are.
Yeah.
Turns out actually you've been doing a pretty decent job while we've been away.
Exactly. And yet you can see that and those would be like, oh, thank you very much, that's amazing. Whereas they just, because of the drugs and because of the alcohol, they're either saying, what the fuck, that's mad, or I need to have more.
Yeah.
It's well, in the end, it's Danny that's encouraging them to have more of the joints. Which is funny, because I was going to say something about... actually, if you go on about... I did a performer. It's not Richard E. Grant, it's...
the guy who plays I?
Yes.
I can't tell you his name.
He's excellent. I love, like... With him, you can see into his personality more.
Yeah.
Whereas with Neil, it looks... Everything's a show that he's become. With I, it's almost like he has this kind of... Half of him is this, rebellious character that likes to drink. And then the other half, where you can actually see his insecurities, you can see that coming out. And a great example is when that guy, when he goes and he calls him something like a puff or something like that, and he comes out and says it again, he just goes... And you can see his acting. I mean, they are actors in the end. You can see himself acting, putting that face on, especially when Uncle Monty's doing it. And he's like, I'm sorry, I've really got to go to bed now. Good night, Monty.
That whole scene is really disturbing because I think this film walks a funny line of being like a really dark comedy, a lot of black humor, but you also, the first time watching this, you're never sure if it's actually going to fall onto the side of the line and just go really dark.
Well, that's it. Like again, with the whole murder vibe, with the whole fear and loathing, not necessarily that's hugely dark.
Because I think in that scene in particular, you don't know if Monty's actually about to rape him.
Yeah, no, you actually don't.
It's almost not until afterwards you can laugh about it.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's very well played and wrote. It does have you on edge a bit. Paul McGann, by the way, plays I. Now, what's good is Richard Griffiths as Monty.
Yes, yeah.
He's not the only uncle that he's played. He's Uncle Vernon.
He is.
So get your dad to watch this film, mate.
Because he's so obsessed with Harry Potter. He wants to see. Is it Uncle Dursley?
Yeah.
Is that his name?
Yeah, Dursley.
He wants to see Uncle Dursley try and rape somebody.
Well, yeah. No, he had a really good performance, and I've never seen him before in any other film, and I was like, holy shit, that's Uncle Vernon, and he's about to rape someone exactly like that. But he also plays like this, like I said, eccentric character in his own right. He's almost like what Withnail has aspired to become.
Dursleys, aren't they? Vernon Dursley? I don't know.
Something like that. Harry Potter fans out there.
Yeah, you can see there's a little bit of aspiration when he looks at him. But
you can see the manipulation as well.
You can see the manipulation.
So manipulative. They both have to some extent, but Withnail hugely like another drink. Is that hugely. But then what I also like about the characters of the film, because this is what the film is mainly about. the script, the story, and well, kind of the story, the meandering story, but the characters, is the use of, because we go the Lake District, you know, quite often. We have our we book a cottage out and have our parties
For a bit of buggery.
for a bit of buggery, and we have a good long weekend around the bank holiday, and we get horrendously drunk, don't we? I make a fool of myself.
We do.
Yeah, and
Do you insult somebody's trouser trout?
Well, the character of the Lake District, it's almost like Hot Fuzz when Edgar Wright wrote it. He based off them. These guys oh yeah, like that. And it's like me when I listen to a really strong Irish accent. I go, what? Or Scottish accent. But that's might be what we are to these people. It's like, oh yeah, alright, how's it going? Like that.
I do kind of appreciate that the film doesn't apologise about that as well. When it starts, it has these kind of thick London accents, and then it has these thick sort of where is it they go? Perth.
Penrith.
They go to Penrith. Then you have those thicker northern accents. Yeah. And it doesn't kind of apologise for it. It doesn't try to make them clearer. It just goes, you're going to pick up the gist of it. You might not get every single line, but you'll pick up the gist if you don't understand all of it.
I also like how it doesn't really tie up loose ends. Normally that really annoys me in a film, but I like it in this one because it fits its style. It fits the way it's going. It's yes, there's so many ways this could go, but this is the way we chose to go. Yeah,
because as characters, you can see they have a tendency to run away from things and forget about them. Yeah. I think, which is why Withnail gets so concerned at the end when I starts to leave, because there's a little bit of him. It's probably thinking, is that going to happen here? Is he just going to completely move on? We're never going to see each other again. And you almost get the impression that they won't see each other again because it was kind of a destructive relationship.
Well, relationship. So this is something I really appreciate the writer, the director, didn't really delve into, because I like how open he's kept it, especially at a time like that when it was made. You don't know whether these guys are really close friends or they're actually in a relationship.
Yeah.
If you think about it, being homosexual at that time, especially in the time that they portray, the 60s, is a huge thing. Hence the guy, I say when he goes in the toilet. And the fact that they have this camp pretentiousness about them, and the way they are to each other, and the way how close they get to one another, especially at the end when he puts his hand. There's so much intimacy, physical intimacy, on screen, spatial intimacy that's brought across, and yet it's never fully implied whether or not it is. It's just left open.
In fact, it's outright stated they're not in a few times, and yet you still get the impression that maybe they are.
And even when he says to his Uncle Monty, you think it's a joke, where he goes, oh, no, I said in love. You don't know the truth of that. And that's what I like about it. It leaves it, again, all open.
Yeah.
It's Bruce Robinson, written and directed by Bruce Robinson. I think it's a sterling job here.
Yeah.
To use of the British word, sterling. No, but seriously, absolutely fantastic. I really thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was just I'd like to watch it again, maybe with a few beers or something.
One last thing.
Cool.
Music. Soundtrack.
Yeah, what a great shout.
That whole sequence. Yeah, all along the Watchtower from Hendrix.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Superb. And again, using Voodoo Child by Hendrix later on. I think there's one there in the car as well.
I really appreciate that they fully embrace that. It's not like they just use the track for a couple of seconds and get rid of it. They actually fully embrace it. They kind of see it through to the end almost. They make a whole sequence out of it. It's wonderful to watch, and it's a wonderful transitional moment to get them into a different
David
setting.
Douglas and Rick Wentworth did do a score for it, but they also included Hendrix. Great use of Hendrix in film.
Yep, absolutely fantastic. So you can let us know in the comments below what you thought of Withnail and I, and you can join us next week to watch. Oh, we didn't do the whole drumming thing at the beginning.
No, I did. You'll watch it and you're going to cut bits of the drumming in between. We're going to watch Unforgiven. Which is Clint Eastwood. So, it's very good.
Yeah, so we'll see you guys next week for Unforgiven. Thank you very much for watching us. We'll see you next week. That doesn't do anything. Beep, 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 beep.